Welcome everybody. You made it. Mitakuye Oyasen to all my relations. My name is Annette Lee. I am mixed race Lakota and my communities are Ojibwe and Dakota Lakota. I'm speaking to you from the land we call Minnesota Makoche, the land where the water reflects the sky, or Minnesota. I'd like to thank you for being here. This is a really exciting event that we got planned, and especially during these tough COVID times, just showing up is a big deal. But speaking of COVID, I would like to take a moment to remember all those that have passed away during this COVID time. And with that, I just want to say that we are trying our best to not only show up, but to create something meaningful here during this COVID time. So this is our project, Two-Eyed Seeing, Navajo Dine Astronomy, NASA Moon to Mars. So just a couple of quick acknowledgements. This is Two-Eyed Seeing, which I was given this teaching by my friend and colleague, Carol Lanakwood, who's Mi'kmaq. And this is Etowaptamunk. It means to see with the best in one eye from Indigenous knowledge, and to see with the best of your other eye from Western knowledge, but to see with both eyes for the benefit of all. That's the beautiful part, the benefit of all, both eyes for the benefit of all. So I just want to tell you that we have one Indigenous-led Indigenous astronomy event each month. So you can check our website to see. And this, we're so excited to share this with you, this event today. I also want to acknowledge and thank NASA NextGen STEM for this funding and this opportunity for all of us, our Indigenous teams, our teacher teams, everybody to be the leaders in creating this. So thank you, NASA NextGen STEM. With that, I just want to say it's an honor and a privilege to work with our Navajo elders, respected colleagues, Nancy Maryboy and David Begay, and I will hand the torch over to you, Nancy and David. Miigwech Pilamia.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Nancy Maryboy, and it's a real honor to be here with you today, talking about one of my very favorite projects, which is Navajo Astronomy, and also how it can be used in the classroom. Nancy Maryboy, Inisha Cherokee, and Dine, the Bird Clan Cherokee, and in Navajo, my paternal clan is the Tsenjikini, the Cliff Dweller Rock Clan. I am living in San Juan Islands, and my family, much of my family, is down on the northern Navajo side of the reservation, Utah. I'm the president of the Indigenous Education Institute, and I also hold the affiliate position as an affiliate professor at the University of Washington in the School of Environmental and Forestry Sciences. Today we're going to be sharing some stories with you, which are called winter stories. The stories of the sky in Navajo are usually called winter stories, and they're usually only told, with very few exceptions, in the winter. This is Navajo protocol, and so we're able to share with you some things today that we wouldn't be able to share if we were talking to you, say, in April or May. So please take this to heart, and don't use any part of this program in other than the winter months for your own purposes. We have some wonderful teachers here that it's been my pleasure to work with. You're going to be introduced to them and see how they're doing in the schooling with bringing in Navajo astronomy and bringing in NASA space science, and how they make connections and engage the students in a really wonderful manner. So I think this is going to be an exciting morning, and I welcome you all. David?
Hello, this is David Begay. I want to greet you in my traditional way. Yat e mishidini dole. The word Yah at a Yah refers to the universe, and at is the existence of the universe. In our way of thinking, it's an acknowledgement that human is a participant of a much bigger universe, and acknowledging somebody, greeting somebody with this acknowledgement. So in our way, we say Yate as a formal greeting. I am a member of the Navajo Nation. I also have a clan called Maidishkini. That clan goes to Hamish Pueblo. So I guess you could say that I also come from the Pueblo people, born for Kia'ani, the Shini, the Shitoskan, so the Shanal. You know, one of the cultural ways here in our home communities that that you have to always introduce yourself. One of those traditional cultural protocol. Outside the reservation, it's not always necessary. But I was also told that when you greet yourself, you also greet your history, your ancestors, and that you're just not just talking to human, another human. And this acknowledgement that you acknowledge the earth and the universe. And so you make it known, you make a communication. So using the word Yate, I want to use that word this morning as all encompassing, including greeting to all of you. I worked with Nancy for several years. We taught together at Northern Arizona University in the Department of Physics and Astronomy. I was also vice president for academic for the Annette College for several years. I'm currently as associate research professor in the University of New Mexico, Albuquerque, working with in the College of Medicine and Pharmacy. And that's what I'm doing. And so as my job takes me here and there, I work with the scientific community as well as the traditional community. Navajo is my first language. English is my second language. So I do a lot of work with traditional communities, and most of my knowledge comes from my people. So my thinking is always the way I think in my language. So I process everything through that. And so this word Yate, it's acknowledge of the human and earth connection. That connection is through the underneath the feet or underneath the shoe or the moccasin, and the connection to Mother Earth. It connotes a mother and infant relationship. So there's a connection. So land is acknowledged like that. So land, I want to say from this area, I want to express my my greeting at this time.
Thank you, David. I'd like to read a land acknowledgement at this point for the Navajo Nation. The Two-Eyed Seeing Program would like to acknowledge the land of Dinepakea, the land of Navajo people, bound by the four sacred mountains, east, south, west, and north. We also acknowledge the rivers located in Dinepakea, the Rio Grande River to the east and the San Juan River. I'll turn it back to you, Annette.
Okay, yeah, beautiful words. Thank you both. It's I really have a lot of gratitude for you. So let's get going, and we've got our first presenter, which is Albert Brent Chase. Brent, are you ready to share?
And here we go.
Ja, ja Albert Brent Chase in the Ado under the Ehanaga in the Schlingo na Kaibashin. Ado under the ya Totswane da Shache. Ado na Tohat the Nedashanale. Could ego ya the Nenschle. Ado under the ya deco not Nahan Halit ya. Yadashil. Quake. Bilkech Nila. Ako instasia da shiltahan need na shada shamasando shiche ado sani dan leniki shiltahal na ye or not aban tiske so adi kwa hatkhali yajba ultra alchana bilindash nashi not and the hotel neko alt isako adil ni higet ya kwa ege ni hilch da hotel al a
My relatives in the sky. Ya biye shik e hollo. A childhood story retold by Albert Brent Chase and Little Singer Community School students.
Yad esh a real Becenti in the shed. Kashkushni nishle ki ani beshchin. Ado ki I dish che totally dishanale. Kosakandat nasha. I have been Miss Little Singer since November 2019. When I was a young child, I would play on the hills near my hogan. As the sun disappeared, the stars would come out shining brightly in the sky up above. There were too many to count.
Ja, it's a Ariana Chiensia, Tatnasani A Nishla, not Totini Bashachi, Ashi A Dashati, Rani Dashanala, Potato A the Nat a Nishla. Ja, that's a vitamin gatina, she had tapa. Noted na Shlanta Baham Bashishi Kiani Dashichi look at the Chanel. I am part of the Little Singer royalty.
The Sweat Lodge is the first place that planning took place. It is told the main poles are made from the dark wind, the blue wind, the yellow wind, and the white wind.
I like the Sweat Lodge. It's really hot in there. We sing some songs and tell stories about Mother Earth and Father Sky. I learned some songs from my culture teacher, and we sing some songs in the Sweat Lodge.
In the Sweat Lodge, songs are sung of child born for the dawn and child born for the night. They are sacred beings for day and night.
Jason Tilly not shasha the net and there's like Kiani, but just cheek a look at the net that should say to hear Glenny Dashanala, Kui Tego A the net Ashkinisla.
We have family in the stars. They had been sent out into the universe from the beginning of our time here, and they were to help keep order and also keep laws and the natural laws. And of course, today we continue to name them by name as they continue to take care of us during the night skies. And we are able to see them as they rotate in the sky.
The male revolving one and the female revolving one are like parents in the sky. The North Star is their fire in the home to keep the star people warm. I remember being told that even the animals are part of the stars. They are the protectors of the night skies. They keep me safe throughout the night. Even throughout the day, Sun Carrier carries the brightest light across the blue sky. I am told the sun is my father too.
Shemasana Doshache, my grandma and grandpa. Around the fire in the hogan, they would tell me that Ma'i, the coyote, would always be mischievous and always be part of things that people or the holy beings did not want him to be part of. The holy people were placing the stars in the sky so that there would be order, so there would be peace and there would be direction. Slowly and carefully, the holy people placing these gems from off of the buckskin. Then Coyote got very restless and impatient as usual. And so he went over to the buckskin. And my grandparents tell me he grabbed the buckskin of the shining gems and said, "Let's just do this. You're taking too long," and threw the gems into the sky before all of them would be placed in the order that was planned.
As a young boy, my favorite thing to do was lay on my sheepskin bedding. I would see my star relatives passing across the smoke hole of my home.
There, remembering my grandparents telling me, the star people are kinship and family to me. And so each evening, I would see them passing by through the night.
I hope you enjoyed my childhood story. As you can see, as young people, we are the first students at home, and our first classroom is in our home. Our first teachers are moms, fathers, grandparents, elders, relatives, and leaders. In today's world, you sometimes are not valued or held at high regards because you don't have a bachelor's, master's, or a doctorate degree. Remember, our ancestors have already earned valuable assets, and by their sacred language, gifted and certified by the holy ones to carry it down through the generations, by storytelling, by ceremonies, music, and art. These are the foundation and stronghold of our home. We planted our seedling of learning and cultivated it with our teachings. Now we send our young to be taught by others who have the passion to add to their nourishment of learning, to have our generations grow strong, healthy, and spiritual beings as they become the light of the world. So family, never forget the power of our language, the power of our cultural teachings. Ahead.
That was beautiful, Brent. Did Nancy or David or Brent, anyone want to say a few words or?
Brent, I am blown away right now. I have chills. I don't even, I can't even capture my words right now. Let me just say that was beautiful and it was amazing. I can't even, what a gift today to share that with everybody. So thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Nancy?
Okay, Brent, the first time I saw your video, I was blown away with it, and it just got better and better. And I love the way you told the story, the coyote, and I love all your remarks. But what I really treasure is that you took the time to talk, to bring the students in during this time of COVID, and show their art and hear their words and their introductions. And I just think the students at Little Singer are so blessed and lucky to have teachers like you to guide them in this way and make them understand how important their own knowledge is as a foundation for everything else they learn as they go through life. So your video encapsulated so much of that thinking, and I just thank you.
Thank you.
Be sure to look in the Q&A. There's a lot of really great comments from participants. Thank you everyone for being here and supporting this. We have a lot of beautiful teachings and content to share. So we'll go right to the next presentation, which is from Wolfina, if that's okay. Does that sound good, Nancy?
Mhm.
Okay.
I grew up with Dine traditional teachings. Dine language was my first language. Therefore, I was not fully aware of what knowledge I really knew until I became a teacher at Little Singer School. My mother, Shema, used to say, meaning teachings begins from your home fireplace. I tried to give the understanding of what my mother meant back to my students. The next story, begins with conception. So when we get students at the school, we work to make them become more aware of these kinships through teaching them their clans and family relationships. It is a start for them to begin to ask questions at home as well. Questions like, where did my clan originate? Which clan group am I related to? Which one am I a part of? What does my clan mean? Does my clan have a clan animal protector?
Yat ești elevator minigos inești. Nato de na anashwa tabaha bashishi ki ani de shichi loka de shina sebit o denasha. Sebit o means sense.
Setting a foundation of the children's personal clans is important because then the children start to expand their understanding of relationships to nature and the elements. Since for most, Dine is their second language, we have to establish vocabulary for them, for the earth, sun, moon, stars, universe. Students then learn to apply those relationship terms to nature. They learn these beings also have these roles of mother, father, grandmother, and grandfather, that they should be respected in the same way we take care of our family, because we also come from these beings as well. Further, how do we orientate ourselves in relationship to Earth, Sun, constellations, center of the Earth, center of the universe?
Yat, my name is Nadea Nez, and I'm going to show you the 6 directions in Navajo with sign language. So first you're going to start off with ha-a-a, sha-da-a, e-e-a, na-hon-kos, ni-ath-ni, ya-ath-ni.
As the Dine language is very descriptive, there are a lot of emotions attached to Dine words, and I try my best to connect them to these emotions by explaining what the words really mean. As part of how we orientate ourselves with nature, shadow is an important teacher. Students learn to become aware of their shadows and how they are part of their lives from birth and throughout the rest of their lives. It not only teaches about their conscience, it also is a reminder of how they fit into creation as a child of Mother Earth and Father Sky. In previous years, we've taught about how the shadow shifts as the sun rises and travels across the sky. It also teaches about the seasons as it slowly travels back and forth across the horizon throughout the year. Here the students use flashlights and an object to create and trace shadows. The objective is to see how light, object, and ground interact as the source of light or the object moves. Use of shadows introduce the concept of seasons. We shift our focus to moon and earth relationships. We call the moon our grandmother and grandfather. The moon cycles are our calendar. Students learn the comparisons of the Gregorian calendar and the moon calendar. How does the air feel in each moon cycle? How do the leaves change? How are the animals and the birds behaving?
These are the months in Navajo with the sign language. So it goes like Banjit, Nitchitose, Nitchitso, Yasnit es, Tselbiaj, Wish Eid Anchil, Anso, Yaishtat, Ili Yaishtat, so Binit Antose, Binit Anso.
It also teaches us about weather, storytelling, and ceremonial seasons, planting and harvest, and birth. It was said the weather was predicted according to the position of the young moon. Can
I ask you some questions about the moon?
Oh,
How does Olja tell the weather?
it tells the weather by when the first moon is this. Sometimes it'll be sitting up like a cup, and sometimes it'll be tilted a little bit. When it's tilted a little bit, that's kind of holding up the weather.
Here the students learn about the relationship between Yadishis and Hassan, and they integrate how weather occurs through a weaving loom. So relationships is found everywhere, and in anything they do, nature is always acknowledged. Here's another demonstration of telling time and season.
It tells time of day and time of season. To tell time of day, the light goes from the back wall to the floor. To tell time of season, light goes across the back wall.
Another way students brought awareness of nature to themselves was through the Toche, the sweat lodge. Boys and girls attended sweat separately in honor of the solstices and equinox. They mapped where the sun set in the western horizon each time they attended, noting how far it moved each time. They relearned songs to honor the animals who contributed to the first sweat lodge according to our Dine stories. They became aware of the importance of the four elements in this setting through song and meditation. They also reconnected and strengthened their character development with adults and elders who attended with them. What do you like most about attending Toche?
It made my skin soft, and I could be open and talk to each other about things, and we could eat together afterwards. I like that we could talk without getting judged. I like the heat and that we got to sing songs.
It's what Navajos do. It's a blessing. And we can get all the stress out.
What lesson do you remember the most?
It's like being reborn because it's like we're in a womb and it's dark. I learned that you set goals for yourself for the future so then you can achieve them.
We sing songs in there.
And finally, learning the traditional songs of the first construction of the Toche helps students apply the Dine philosophy of learning to the Western engineering process. We combined the two models and used the Dine ancestral ways of thought as a Dine engineering mechanism to guide student thinking to build projects. Ahyaha.
Thank you, Wilfina. That was a wonderful video. I think having the students do so much of it in their own language is very inspiring. And the way you weave the principles like relationships into the curriculum. So it's reinforcing what they learn at home from their grandparents and other elders, and then they take it to school. And that makes a beautiful transition between home and school. And I think the students are strengthened so much by the kind of things you're teaching as far as their sense of self-identity goes. And so as you were speaking and the students were speaking, I was thinking how lucky the people are that are watching this are to see, you know, the way you are teaching, and that it goes for the other teachers too. To see how masterful and brilliant these teachers are, putting two ways of knowing together. Most teachers don't have to do that. They just stick with the mainstream all across the United States. So I think this is such a nice opportunity for people to hear from you. And Little Singer School is way out, not near any town or city. It's off, for a long time it was off the grid, just on using solar energies. And it's they've just moved into a new school, but they can't get in it yet because of the COVID virus. So, but you'll hopefully see pictures of it and hear more from people like Wilfina in the near future. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Let's see, now it's my pleasure to introduce Thomas, who I've known for a long time also, and he actually was my student at Dine College quite a few years ago, as a matter of fact. And it's a great pleasure to introduce him. We've been working with Tom and with NASA groups for many years, and you'll see a continuation now of how NASA principles are also interwoven into this curriculum. So Tom, it's my pleasure to introduce you.
Nancy and David. And Annette, if we can just go ahead and go straight to the video. Yeah, Tom Thomas, yeah. Austrian Nishle. Asas Lorraine Vashischin, do German Dashache, Lithuanian Dashanale. Hello, good morning. My name is Tom Thomas, and I am the 6th grade classroom teacher here at Little Singer Community School. And we have distinguished 6th grade students prepared to present to you about Earth and space exploration. There are 5 categories that we'll be focusing on that we've already done some lessons on, and then that we will continue to work on into this spring semester. The 5 categories are: first, sun, earth, moon, self, shadow, relationships, also known as CAT. Number 2, NASA's theme, STEM on Station. Number 3, NASA, Moon to Mars, with a special emphasis on astrobiology. The 4th topic is our solar system of planetary systems. And the final one, sun and other star qualities. Now let's get started with our first presenter, Dante.
Yata Shae Dante Doki Inishia Ki Andashama Yedina Tachini Bashishin Na Totana Nishache Nishkali Nishin Nishla. I will be showing you Sun, Mother Earth, Moon, Self, and Shadow relationships. Okay. Where on the western horizon did the sun set in Tuba City, Arizona between September 15th and 29th, 2020? Well, that's my sunsets that I drew there, and that if you can see a little closely, you can see the dates.
Yata she aina danas in the shaki audience that you need by chin san jacana dash a chase sit naturally dash anala. The slide, the title is How Does the Autumnal Equinox Teach Us About is shown to us with relationships between Mother Earth, Sun, Self, and Shadow. What is an autumnal equinox? 1. Day and night are equally length. 2. The autumnal equinox happens and marks the first day of autumn. Reasons for our seasons. 1. Earth has seasons because it has an axial tilt of 23 degrees. 2. Different parts of Earth get different amounts of sunlight.
The second topic that we'll be discussing is NASA STEM on Station. And one of our focuses is about protecting our air quality. And we started at home and took a look at the quality of air in our homes by measuring the amount of radon, which is a naturally occurring gas from uranium. It is odorless, colorless, tasteless, and is a natural radioactive gas. So it can be harmful. And it can occur in anyone's home. It occurs in 1 out of 15 homes. Our homes need to be ventilated to take care of radon and other things such as volatile organic compounds, too much carbon dioxide, and so forth. Now, the air quality on the ISS is not so easy to balance. We can't just open the windows to ventilate. But their radon is obviously not an issue. However, oxygen needs to be produced and carbon dioxide needs to be removed by dumping it overboard. These are topics that we are currently researching at Little Singer and ones that we'll be continuing to look at throughout this spring semester. Our next presenter is Brielle Becenti. Brielle, go ahead and tell us about the International Space Station.
Yad eshe Abriel Becenti inishe hashklishni inishe kiani bashishin aro kiani dashe totally dashanele. This is the ISS as a human design system, and it has the 5 qualities of a system, which are inputs, outputs, properties, boundaries, interactions, and components. Some inputs are air and STEM supplies. Some outputs are reflected sunlight and data. Properties are at 72 degrees inside the ISS all seasons. Some boundaries are the mod shielding and external thermal blanket interactions. The ISS interacts with the Earth because it orbits it. Some components are the communication system, navigation system, and stretching out to the sides of the ISS are solar arrays. This slide's a comparison between Gateway and the ISS. And for Gateway orbits the moon and is an important part of the Artemis program. The space station will also help astronauts travel to Mars and into deep space. For the ISS orbits planet Earth. Scientists study planet Earth and how humans can live safely in the space station. The ISS found out the Earth was not a perfect sphere but is an egg shape, but the shape doesn't look like an actual egg. What they have in common: solar panels to provide renewable energy to each space station. Scientists in both stations would study astrobiology, and both stations have a thermal protection layer so the astronauts are not too hot or too cold.
Yad eshe Brian Isaac Geshe Tetnizani Nishlin Arcade Dine Bashichi Plizaslana Dashichelo Kadine Dashnale. My slide is about what is astrobiology. Astrobiology is the study of and search for life in our solar system and beyond distant stars. What are astrobiologists? Astrobiologists are people who are interested in how Earth's life will adapt and survive when moving to another planet or place in the universe. Why astrobiology fascinates me. Astrobiology fascinates me because it gives me the opportunity to learn about planets and space. Astrobiology also fascinates me because astronauts go to space to sacrifice their lives to study space for us to know more about our universe and if there is any way a person can live on one of these planets in our solar system.
Hi, it's Brielle again, and this slide is about the astrobiology novel that we read, and we chose out a picture that we want to talk about. And
I chose this section, and I like this section because it gives you details on what Perseverance will do once it lands on Mars. It also states that it is the most complicated mechanism ever built and tested for spaceflight. I like that they added that statement because if they didn't put that, I would have never known it was the most complicated ever built, which also fascinates me because I would have thought that the most complicated mechanism ever built would have already been made. And some questions I have are, why will Perseverance not sample everything it picks up? And how will Perseverance help researchers find life on Mars? Hi, this is the data. This part of the text seems interesting to me because hearing and seeing that scientists are trying their hardest to see if there's life on Mars is very fascinating to me. Being able to live on Mars would be very awesome, and hearing how close scientists are getting information about Mars is exciting. New technologies are also very interesting to hear and learn about too. Questions I have are, have scientists got figures of life on Mars? Do scientists control the robots? Do the robots control themselves?
Me and my classmates have questions about astrobiology. What kind of environment is necessary for life to survive on Mars? Is there or has there been life on Mars or elsewhere? What is humanity's future on Mars and beyond? How many universes are there with habitable planets?
Jag är fancy dots chat nizani nishla na kaidena bashishkin is a slana dashachi na kaidena dashanella okut ego dene at ed nishla. My slide is about our solar system of planetary systems. Down below there's an image of our solar system of the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. How is present in our solar system? Is about relationships with people, animals, plants, and sun, and much more. NASA has because if NASA workers did not work together, there would be no such thing as NASA. Is represented in our solar system because all of the planets orbit and interact with the sun. The question that me and my classmates have is, how can we use the Navajo peacemaking process during space travel?
This section is sun and other star qualities, and this is the sun as a natural system, and it has 5 qualities of a system, which are inputs, outputs, interactions, properties, components, and boundaries. Inputs are asteroids, outputs are energy, heat, and radiation. Interactions, the sun interacts with all the planets in our solar system. Properties, temperature and magnitude. Components are hydrogen and helium. Boundaries are the photosphere, convective zone, and radiative zone. Properties of our closest star, the sun, and more. If you look at the arrow, this is where our sun is located when compared with other stars in the universe. The sun is on the main sequence of stars and is known as a G-star. It is not a giant or a dwarf star. The sun is an average size of a star. Our closest star, the sun, is one of about 100,000 million stars in our Milky Way galaxy. There are roughly 125 billion galaxies in our observable universe.
Thank you, Tom. That was a wonderful presentation. It's astonishing how much the students are learning, and I want to tell you that if you ever have a chance, any of you out there listening, to walk into Tom's classroom, you'll see all the walls are filled with images like the ones he had on this PowerPoint, and you can just get lost in there for hours just looking at every one of them and what these students are doing and how excited they are about the science they're learning. And Tom also weaves in all of these wonderful Navajo concepts as he's teaching. So these are such rich learning environments and experiences. And so, Tom, many, many thanks. I also want to just tell you that the last 3 speakers have all been from Little Singer Community School, and they have a wonderful principal, Etta Shirley, and she's made it possible for all of these teachers to teach to the best of their abilities. And it's been such wonderful pleasure for David and I to work with them over lots, as I said, lots and lots of years. Now we're going to make a switch to another friend of ours who we've been with for many years from Durango, Colorado, Sarah Margoles. And she is an 8th grade science teacher at Miller Middle School in Durango. Her class is not all Navajo students. It's a blended mix of Native Americans and Hispanic and Anglo and probably other ethnicities as well. And she too is just another one of these wonderfully born teachers that has so embraced some of the Navajo concepts of the Navajos because we are her neighbors. She's right near the reservation, and she has built so much of that into her teaching of science, and she's finding out how this is so relevant to the students. So without any more talk, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah Margolis. I'm an 8th grade science teacher at Miller Middle School in Durango. So Durango is in that southwest corner of Colorado. Utah is about a 1-hour drive to the west. New Mexico is about a 30-minute drive to the south. And as Nancy was saying, Miller has a fairly diverse body of students, about 65% white, 20 to 25% Hispanic, and 10% Native American, with most Native students being Navajo. So this year, more than ever before, I've realized the importance of establishing roots before watching my classroom grow. The growth of these roots, at least for me, is creating a positive classroom community where everyone feels comfortable, respected, and valued. Without that, honestly, learning just doesn't happen. So in a diverse classroom, that means incorporating multiple viewpoints and cultural perspectives. So this year I've taken baby steps toward being a more culturally relevant teacher, and have found that even small steps, such as incorporating Navajo constellations or the Navajo creation story into classroom discussions and projects, reaches many Native and non-Native students that often feel disengaged or uninterested in traditional Western science instruction. I have much to learn, but I'm excited to learn it. So there are 2 projects from our astronomy unit that I'd like to share with you all, and note that our whole astronomy unit was done remotely this year. So in the first project, students chose a Navajo constellation and compared it to its corresponding Greek constellation and examined the importance and significance of those constellations to their respective cultures. Students also researched the brightest star in that constellation star grouping and its life cycle stages, its luminosity, temperature, distance, etc. Then students looked at that grouping of stars and drew what they saw in that grouping of stars, their own constellation, and came up with their own myth to support it. So as a final product for this project, students wrote a poem. And that poem tied together the Navajo constellation, the Greek constellation, and their own version, their own constellation. So here's some short clips of student samples of this project.
Hello, my name is Iris Chambers, and I'm an 8th grade student at Miller Middle School. I chose to research the Navajo constellation Shash, or the bear. This constellation is used in Navajo culture to herald the coming of spring and summer. The corresponding Greek constellation is Sagittarius, which is also called the Archer. When I looked up at the stars, I saw something different. I saw a deer, which was had twisted legs, so it was like dancing. I wrote a poem about it. The noble Shash heralding the coming of spring and the beginning of an era. The strong Sagittarius, bow and arrow in hand, led on by the bright blue wonder that is Caus Australis. And finally, there is the reindeer, different than the rest, but still a wondrous creation. They all live to survive, but also to inspire all of us down on Earth together as we watch the intricate web of bright, marvelous stars that connects them for eternity. Although we all see something different, they are still one, connected by so many minds across the globe. Overall, this project has made me think differently about the stars and all the different interpretations of them across the globe. I think it's really important that as Americans, we try to see two different cultures instead of just the Greek one.
Incorporating all these cultures together, we created our own poem. Stars in the sky, burning bright, stories being told when looking up to the starry night. Scorpions scouring and searching, with rabbits running rampant, and snakes silently slaughtering. But a reason is found with background, for with a story comes common ground. Kahiti tells of a rabbits in its tracks, signifying that a hunting season can relapse. While also looking down, Etso brings reassurance. Now, knowing the Greeks being painfully beautiful, so to speak, Orion the giant fallen in love, then driven crazy, and kills many doves. Gia, angered, sends a scorpion to right the wrongs, and Orion is killed, no longer able to sing songs. But a different story could be told, a battle. Throughout the stories, this star we see, called Antares, named by thee. Out of 18 stars, Antares burns the brightest at 3,500 Kelvin, and times 65,000 of our suns. But never fear, it's nowhere near here, 554.5 light years away. We see Antares as red, but not much else could be said of the supergiant. As long as you are compliant, Antares will not become defiant. Even though the stars are interpreted differently, we all hear stories consequently. So let the stars burn bright, and look up once in a while at the starry night.
My name is Caden Blue Eyes, and my maternal clan is Ashihi. The description of the Navajo constellation that I chose was a strong warrior who proudly protects his people, and his name is Atsi Atsozi. The Greek constellation that relates to him is named Orion. Two similarities that between Orion and Atsi Atsozi are they are strong warriors, and they both either run away or stay away from another constellation. For example, Orion stays away from the constellation of a scorpion, and Atsi Atsozi stays away from his father-in-law. They never seen in the sky with another constellation, such as scorpions or his father-in-law.
Awesome. So when you looked at the stars, Caden, what did you see?
I saw a little bit of a blooming flower. When I looked at the belt, I could see a little bit of the middle of the flower, while the arms and legs were showing the bloom of it. My story behind it was that my flower represents the flower of life and peace that was placed up there by Setsuna. He was one of his main goals when he was alive was mainly to gain peace between everyone, but for each culture and each clan between each other. So he was hoping he would be able to achieve it, but he never could. So he decided to place a constellation in the sky that looks like a flower, to hope one day that someone will realize his ideals to help to end all wars and achieve peace one day.
Awesome. So tell me about how doing a project like this makes you feel.
It makes me feel great because I get to learn more of my culture, because I never knew that they used to look up in the sky when they saw other figures in the stars. Because, for example, they used to use the stars for when to know when to plant, when to hunt, when to stop hunting, when to tell stories, and to stop tell stories.
Our poem that represents this constellation is
Written in the Sky. When the coyote emptied his bag, stars flew into the night. The twinkling lights flew like a flag. Chaos erupted with a fright. The stars are a beautiful sight. People now gather far and wide to see the stars fly high in the sky.
So mighty tall, defending them all, a spear through the heart can end it all. From his teeth, warriors began to fall, now up in the sky, reminder to the tall and the small.
Little gold bird, so very little, but dreams bigger than mine. Although he was belittled, he now dines fine, still living his life kind. Up in the sky, a reminder to all of how one little act can change it all.
A mystery to some, their stories boast, of their glories we come to tell. To some they mean nothing, to others they mean the most, but nothing you could ever say.
Look at the stars.
The second project I want to share with you all is one where I actually collaborated with our 8th grade English teacher, Jenny Fitzreynolds. and it has a couple parts. So students first studied the evidence that led to the Big Bang Theory, redshifting, cosmic microwave background radiation, nucleosynthesis, and using that evidence, they came up with their own creation stories supported by scientific evidence. Now that they have that background about the Big Bang and fresh out of the mindset of creating their own creation story, students chose a creation myth from anywhere in the world, Mayan, Japanese, Norse, etc., and retold that myth to the rest of the class, which was a great learning experience in terms of how stories can easily change depending on who's telling it. Okay, so lastly, the last part of this project, and I promise this is the last part, students listened to the Navajo creation story told by Wolfina Becenti. Wolfina was kind enough to record the Navajo creation story and send it to me so that I could use it for all my students' classes. And then they also listened to the biblical creation story. So to pull everything together, students then came up with a symbol that connected the Navajo creation story, the biblical creation story, the myth that they just retold, and the Big Bang Theory. And here are some short snippets from students presenting their symbols.
My symbol to represent and connect the biblical creation, the Navajo creation, the Big Bang Theory, and the Yoruba creation was this picture. It is of a wildfire that burnt down, and there's a sprout growing in the middle. All of them had some form of destruction in their stories. And then they had like a rebirth and like recreation of everything.
For instance, the Navajo, the 6 beings moved from the darkness of their first world and went to the first world, which is represented in the grass here, with all the cat people. And it was full of light and life, but they didn't want to live with the cat people, so they started a war and they lost. So they had to go back up the reed, which is represented in the trunk. And the full part of this tree represents the third world, which they basically described as a perfect world. But
and throughout the stories, I noticed that light played an important role. In Japanese, Navajo, and Big Bang ideas, everything began in darkness. But when there was darkness, there was nothing. And the big moment was when the light and the heat especially in the Big Bang, connected everything. It brought life, and through these stories, we're taught to cherish not only the warmth that light brings us, but also like the stability and the safety. I also think it is important to mention that with light also comes darkness. In the Japanese culture, there is yin and yang, yin being the darker and yang being the lighter. The two work together in harmony because without both, you can't have balance. Balance brings wisdom and balance brings safety. In Navajo creation, there are 4 worlds. The first world is dark, but the second, the yellow world, brings light, which is very, very important, especially in our world, because light encourages growth and change, and especially warmth. So in my symbol, I showed the light kind of pushing away the darkness, but it's not completely eradicating it, because darkness is just as important as light in these stories.
I chose an onion for my creation story symbol. It relates to the Big Bang because it starts off as one solid thing, then each time that you cut it up, it gets further and further, like redshifting shows us in the expansion in the Big Bang. It also relates to the Voodoo culture because the Voodoo god shed all of his skin to create the waters for the earth.
Water today can be very destructive, but we also need it to live and to survive. In the Hopi and Navajo creation story, they both go through different stages of the world kind of to get to what we have today. And in each one of the stories, in one stage of the world, the world gets wiped out with water. And that's like a big symbol of destruction because they kind of completely like reset the world. Also, it represents the Big Bang because when the Big Bang was happening, there was a lot of matter that got destroyed by antimatter. And so there's a lot of destruction there. But then like the particles that were left that didn't get destroyed created like a whole universe. So that's pretty cool. Now, even though like especially in the Navajo and Hopi culture that like we got totally destroyed by water, we still need it to live and we still need it to be healthy.
Thank you, Sarah. Is that the end of your presentation?
That's it.
Great. It's wonderful. Thank you so much. I really for pulling so many students and all of their wonderful remarks, and the kind of questions you posed to them and how they really thought about their answers. It was well done, and a video too. Very, very, very nice. Thank you. Thank you. The next part of our presentation is with David and myself, and we're going to talk about a few of the winter constellations. This is Milky Way and David Begay.
Right. Thank you. As you can see through this basket, there's a star in the middle of the basket. And that's that in our culture that represents North Star. It's like a central fire, and it provides the organization, the central balance of nature that brought balance to the universe. In our way of organizing knowledge, star knowledge, we follow what's in nature. Most people, they'll jump around, they'll say Pleiades, Orion, Scorpius, and you can jump around. In our culture, we're told not to do that. We have to start with the central fire, and we go from there counterclockwise as nature sees it, as nature processes shows it. It goes counterclockwise. So in the weaving of the basket, our people that weave basket, they go counterclockwise, starting with the center. And when they go on the outside, way out on the outside, they put in the rest of the 8 constellations. We have 8 main constellations that serve as the nexus of the night sky. It's sort of like the backbone. And then there's other constellations, secondary group of constellation, and there's actually many constellations, but the 8 serve as the backbone. And so in this presentation, I was asked to concentrate just on the Milky Way. So if you try to look for the Milky Way in this basket, our people say that the Milky Way is on the outer edge all the way around. And our people knew that the Milky Way is really circle. What you see at nighttime, most of the nighttime, is this portion of the Milky Way. It'll go one direction, another direction, depending on the night. And also during the season, they change. Here, I wanted to mention that the Milky Way, the entire Milky Way can be observed the 3rd week in January in the pre-dawn hour. You can actually see it. If you were to go outside, find a hill to stand on, if you look to the east, you'll see the Milky Way. If you look to the south, you'll see Milky Way. If you look to the west, you'll see Milky Way. If you look to the north, you'll see Milky Way. It'll encircle the earth. In our language, we call it Niya, Nizen, Yaya, Nizen, the coming together of the earth, the ground, and the sky through the Milky Way. And so you see the entirety of the Milky Way. And at this time, our elders tell us that this is when the eagles lay their nests, third week in January. They lay their eggs, and so at that time, right around that time, there's a crescent moon, and it happened here in our country a couple of weeks ago. Crescent moon, and last night was full moon. When the crescent moon happens, that's when the eagles lay their eggs, and so the month for that crescent moon, it's referred to as Astrobiology, eagle. Eagle laying their egg, Astrobiology. So in Navajo, this is when the new year starts. It starts with February, and the laying of the egg, and then also the position of the Milky Way. So the Milky Way sort of like serves as like the nest, of this eagle, and this eagle lays its egg at this time and the beginning of the new year. So our calendar by the lunar cycle starts with February, the last month, the 12th month would be January, almost similar to the Chinese New Year. So I figured that it might be best to explain the Milky Way through this basket. So this basket, represents the whole night sky. So if you go counterclockwise, you start with the central star, the North Star, then you go counterclockwise, you have Pleiades and Orion, Corvus the Crow, and Scorpius, and the tail end of Scorpius, and then the Milky Way goes all the way around. I'm saying this in Greek because most people will follow these words. We have names for all these constellations in our own language. At this time, in the pre-dawn hour, you can see the whole of the Milky Way. Before the pre-dawn hour, there's also a time in there. The Navajos refer to that time as Yikwe, Yikwe-staha. So the Milky Way is named for that period, the pre-dawn time. There's about like an hour in there, just right before the pre-dawn. And then after the pre-dawn, there's dawn. And so in all of that movement, there's those, the constellation, and including the Milky Way, will move and they will position themselves. So the recognition of the cosmic movement is very important. So it's important to understand these movements in Navajo. Right before the pre-dawn hour, the position of the Milky Way will be more vertical. And then when the pre-dawn comes, it will become horizontal, like flush in alignment with the the pre-dawn hour. So I just wanted to mention that. I think this is what I wanted to say at this time. I will move on to Nancy.
Thank you, David. It's always so interesting. And just remember, you can go outside tonight. If you have a clear night, you might be able to see very close to the pre-dawn hour, very before the sun rises. You might be able to see the Milky Way lying around the whole horizon. I want to talk about the Thunderbird constellation. This is one of my favorite constellations, and it has a very important meaning for the month of February. Thunderbird is Pegasus and Sagittarius and various other stars. The Thunder constellation is related to the Bear constellation, which is Sagittarius, as the Greeks would name it. It's considered a spring and summer constellation and will first appear with the heliacal rise in the pre-dawn hours of early spring. This occurs about the same time that the first thunder of spring sounds on Earth, signifying the coming of spring. The sounds of the first thunder and the first appearance of the Thunder constellation in the sky awake the life processes and emergence of spring, and moreover, signals the rejuvenation of seasonal life cycles on Earth. The Thunder constellation manifests the interconnection of all life in the universe: animals, plants, humans, thunder, and lightning. And this is so important that you'll even hear it announced on radio stations like KTNN on the Navajo Nation. They'll say, oh, we've just heard the first thunder in Tuba City, or, oh, we've just heard the first thunder in Window Rock. That is the time that you stop telling winter stories, you stop doing winter ceremonies. And some of you have been phoning and asking when the winter story season is over. It is over when the thunder appears on the Navajo Nation, and probably where you are too. And it doesn't, and the winter stories cannot be told again until about mid-September. This has to do with the crescent moon. So just keep that in mind. The cosmic essence of the Thunder constellation is depicted as a feather containing 6 stars. Annette, can you show the next slide? You can see the feather on top of the Thunderbird's head. And there are 6 stars in the Thunderbird feather. Each star represents a month and can be identified with the morning heliacal rise of the first bright star in the east, following the new crescent moon for each of the 6 months. So you can see the top one is the first one you would see around late September, early October, and it's called the nebula. And an easy way to find that is it's in the tail of Leo the lion. The next star of the Thunderbird is Arcturus. The December star is Corona Borealis, the brightest star in the corona. In January, it's Vega in Lyra. And in February, it's Altair in Aquila. And in March or late February, it is Shet in Sagittarius, in Pegasus. Can you go to the next slide? Unlike most Navajo constellations, the Thunder constellation covers a major part of the sky and appears over many, many months. The first indication of its feather comes in the early morning of September, as I said. The body takes an additional 3 months to completely appear, March, April, and May, and remains visible during the rest of the summer. And this time of year is just the polar opposite of what it's doing in pre-dawn hours in the fall. And so it will be early dawn that you would see these stars. There's an interesting fact is the bear, Shosh in Navajo, you can see it has a nose, and this is part of the Sagittarius constellation. When the nose of the bear touches the horizon in late February, early March, and sometimes as early as late January, depends on the moon, then at the same time that fourth star of Pegasus will touch the horizon. When they're both visible on the horizon, that is when you will see the first thunder, hear the first thunder. And again, that's when winter stories would stop being told. And it's also when the bears come out of hibernation, the reptiles come out, the plants begin to grow. It's a beautiful interconnection of all things. Next slide, please. And I want to talk a minute about the sun. Johanna A in Navajo. The sun and the moon are usually paired. Together, their cycles determine the times of the months and the years. There are usually 12 full months in a year, but occasionally, every few years, Navajos will acknowledge a 13th moon around the time of October sometimes, according to old Navajo teachings. This resets the calendar system so that the sun and moon cycles are harmoniously balanced. There are many stories about the sun in Navajo cosmology, including the stories of the sun impregnating two girls, which occurs about the time that the sun is passing through the twin stars of Gemini. The girls give birth to sons, Monster Slayer and Born for Water. These twins grow up and visit their father, the sun. After many trials, they receive supernatural weapons and return to the earth. Sorry, there's something really strange happening here to my connection. Anyway, the twins visit their father, the sun, and he doesn't accept them at first, but finally they convince him that they are indeed his sons. They receive powerful weapons to take back and return to Earth to kill the monsters who are destroying the people. This story can be related through many aspects to the two NASA missions to the sun, the Parker probe and the solar orbiter. Two missiles, two twins going to the sun to receive weapons, to come back and to deal with major problems here on Earth. The sun is said to be a male energy depicted by a perfectly round turquoise disk. It is said to be carried by a sun carrier as it makes its daily rounds across the sky. It is often depicted as a man on a horse riding across the sky. The energies of the sun are used in healing ceremonies. People are reminded not to look at the sun during an eclipse. If they forget and look at the sun, they may develop eye and digestive troubles. These can be healed by the sun's energies. And finally, the last constellation, well, it's not a constellation, but the last object in the sky I want to mention is Tlehona-e, the moon. The moon is considered to be a female energy related to the male energy of the sun. There are many stories about the moon, often passed down through female side of the family. The moon is often depicted as a perfect white shell disk carried by the moon carrier as he rides his horse across the sky. The phases of the moon are considered to be very important, and there's a Navajo name of each of the nights of the lunar cycle. The meaning of the moon is life itself, intrinsically connected with the life cycles of all organism. And that concludes our talking about some of the stars of the winter. I want to now turn it over to Eddie Gonzalez if he's able to get on. He sent me an email a little bit ago saying they're in the midst of a gale out there on the East Coast. But if he's able to get on, Eddie is going to talk to us. So Eddie, are you able to come on?
This is David Begay again. I think what we have heard is a diversity of knowledge. So many different ways to talk about astronomy, about the stars, the creation, and also the art of teaching with focus on Native American students. And what I have heard is different perspectives, multiple perspectives actually, and cross-cultural explanation of science and Aboriginal knowledge in some cases. And I think this is hard to do going from one extreme to the other, going from hard science to cultural knowledge, and doing it in the classroom is even more challenging. Trying to explain these things, and I think you can make some comparison too. I think Sarah and her kids, they were talking about the Big Bang, and as a result, different matter evolved. The hydrogen and the helium and all the different elements, and how that evolved into many living things, and Navajo talk about creation stories too through the stars. Pretty much what Tom was talking about, the astrobiology. That and Navajo, they say we come from stars. Matter of fact, our word for star is Tsutsu Yo. It's a relationship word, that goes back in time. It's very ancient, that we are actually a creation of ancient, energies and star and evolution of light. And so they do talk about it. And I think astrobiologists, astrophysicists, they talk about these things, and then also and also taking into consideration some of the biblical stories that was mentioned by some of the students and Sarah. And so this is a pretty difficult thing to do, but the students made it so natural. And I also wanted to emphasize how Native people, they use stories, and I think Brent did a good job using some of the stories, star knowledge, and some of the songs. Even though he didn't talk about it, there's a song in the background. Those are called a Shugim song, and this song talks about the origin of day and night. You can talk about day and night and the solstice through this song, and how all the living things, all the living animals, how they interact, and how the animal species can teach you about day and night. And so there's a whole organization of knowledge connected to those songs. And some of the language, the Aboriginal language, the words that were used, like North Star, to determine the direction. We say north to refer to the north, we use North Star. And to the east, south, and the west, we use the sun, the movement of the sun. So including the solstice. And so all of those were talked about. And I think at this age, the younger generation at this age, for them to get exposed to this diversity of knowledge is very important. I'm so glad that Goddard Space Science Center, NASA, is supporting us to interact with students through these Native communities and non-Native communities alike. And I think we have made some inroads and interest in astronomy, and hopefully some of our people will become astronauts and study space science and be a contributor to space science exploration into the future. So I think what Tom talked about, the cat that he was talking about, the interrelationship of all things, is, I think it's very common among Indigenous people. It's very shared, that all things are interrelated. And you can talk about this interrelationship through so many different things. It's just a different way of talking about different subject area. For example, when Native people, Earth people talk about gravity, they talk about how the interactions of all things and interrelationship of all things is what makes gravity do what it does. So when you take an apple and you drop it and it falls down, it's the universe acting. It's the whole universe acting, and you can localize it and put equation to it, and to do an explanation. But it's really, our people say it's the whole universe acting. So the interrelationship that Tom was talking about, but yeah, I think it's, very important, different ways of looking at things sometimes. I just wanted to mention that maybe Eddie Gonzalez may have been trying to get back on. Maybe he's back on. I'll end my part here. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, David. Thank you for adding that synthesis at the end. It's really appreciated. Eddie is our contact from Goddard Space Flight Center and NASA headquarters as well. And he was going to talk to you about his story. But Eddie, is there any way you're on right now? If not, I think we'll move to the questions. And that will complete our presentation. Well, it sounds like he was knocked off, and maybe he'll come back on. So Annette, I'm going to turn it back to you to continue with a few questions, and then I think we'll probably be out of time.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of really good comments and supportive words in the Q&A. So thanks everyone for being on this webinar with us. There was a question early on for Wilfina, Miss Becenti, and they wanted to know, there's actually several questions. They wanted to know more about Dine sign language and how it relates to the ASL. Wilfina, would you be able to, or anyone? But yeah, okay.
From my experience, using your senses to teach language is always effective. So sometimes I teach with using like syllables, to say certain words. They tap themselves like this to say the syllables. And another way is to create a visual. So we create like the ones with the 6 directions. I kind of took a poll inside the classroom to see how they saw sunrise. So they all came together and they said it comes up. So that's what we developed in the classroom. So it's kind of just language for inside the classroom, and it kind of just drifts down to each class grade. So yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So the students are helping to create that.
Yes.
That's fantastic. I think one thing that really jumps out too is like for people that are listening, there has been such beautiful content produced here. And this is the result of Nancy and David and their decades of leadership and work in being, a part of their communities here. So I just want to say like, this is fantastic. And that not in all tribes, in all situations, we have this like because of colonization, so much has been lost. So I really just want to acknowledge that your leadership here has really created this beautiful a tree or this explosion of participation and content. So that's fantastic. There was another question for Sarah, and it said, how did you get involved with this cultural competency project? Does it meet the STEM standard in Colorado?
Well, because Nancy invited me. I was lucky enough to be asked by Nancy to participate. And one of the things that I've done to make it satisfy more standards is collaborate with the English teacher, because I know a lot of, at least in 8th grade, a lot of the English standards have to do with stories and myths and telling stories and retelling stories and writing stories and learning about different cultural myths. And so collaborating with another teacher from collaborating with the English teacher really helped satisfy some of those standards. And also my school is pretty forgiving in terms of they let me take things in different directions. And I really appreciate that. And I think it pays off in terms of student learning.
And a quick follow-up question for all of our educators, our lead educators here. Someone wrote in, was there any controversy about implementing the traditional knowledge within a modern classroom from the beginning? Was there any pushback for any of the educators?
No pushback from my end. I think the only hiccup sometimes is my own confidence and my own confidence in being able to talk about a culture when I am not from that culture. And so I think being able to ask and say, hey, Wolfina, will you record the Navajo story, and asking that culture for permission and for their expertise is really helpful.
Anyone else want to weigh in on that? Or Nancy and David, there was a question about when are the winter months? I think you said that, but maybe you could repeat that, because people were saying that they want to use the the stories or share stories, but they want to also do it with the respect to protocol. And an interesting part of that is, what if they're in California or the East Coast? How would that have to change if, based on everyone's different locations? Maybe they're, in Australia or somewhere else too. So maybe you could speak to the protocol around the winter stories.
I think I already mentioned about, it has to do with the crescent moon, but to keep it simple, it would be when you hear the first thunder on the Navajo Nation. And that could be any time from early February to early March. But the part about if you're on the East Coast is really interesting. So David, do you want to say something about that? Well, while he's thinking about it, Eddie might be on right now. Let me see.
Oh, he is. He is.
Let's switch over to Eddie and see if between winds he can speak to us.
Yeah, Eddie made it back. I apologize, everybody. This has been such an amazing set of presentations. But unfortunately, where I live on the East Coast. I live in Washington, D.C., and I live in a duplex on the top floor of a building. And the winds up here, I'm going through gale winds, and I keep getting knocked off the internet. I'm losing power in my place, and it kind of comes and goes. So hopefully I'll be able to at least say hello to everybody and how thankful I am for all of the presenters and all of the speakers. I know that I'm soon going to be giving a talk at the Little Singer School, and also with Sarah, Miss Sarah's class, and I really look forward to that. There's a picture of me with some of the students that I mentor. But one of the things that I'm very passionate about is, and again, you'll hear more in detail when I do give those presentations. When I was in 7th grade, 8 days before my 13th birthday on Christmas Day, my father died. And with that, my will to behave, to be a good student, and to do the right thing also died with me that day. And I became a very horrible person and got into a lot of trouble. Needless to say, it took a group of people to say, I know you can do better. And well, to make a long story short, and then to say for my presentations later, I have now been working at NASA for over 20 years, and it is such an amazing place. But there's one thing that we need, and we need more Native Americans, Hispanics, Latinx, women, people of color, people from diverse populations, from underserved, underrepresented communities. We need you. We need all of you. And it's not just to become an astronaut. If you have a love of art, you could design patches. If you have a love of math, you can help with budgets for missions. Or if you want to be an astronaut, you can do that too. If you want to be a scientist, you can do that as well. If you want to be an engineer, you could do that too. If you like to play with Legos, NASA's somewhere fun that you'd like to work. And every morning when I wake up, it's something that I want to do. And I'd like to share something really quick if I can, and then I'm going to turn everything around. I didn't realize that my camera was off, so let me turn that on real quick and hopefully it works. Yeah, there it is. A really good friend of mine, his name was Randall Crow Acosta. He died on Thanksgiving, and he also worked for NASA. He was an engineer, and he worked with the Mars team. And some of the things that he was working on is the Perseverance rover that's on its way to Mars now. And it's going to be landing soon in a few weeks, and I hope all of you tune in for that. And I know that Randall his spirit is still a part of that. And my director, his name is C. Alex Young, and his wife, Linda, gave me this rock that I wanted to share with everybody. It's a beautiful rock that sits by my bedside, and it reminds me of Randall every day. And I hope that you think of Randall too when the Perseverance rover lands on Mars coming up in a few weeks. And I want to thank you for allowing me to speak and to share. And again, to Ms. Sarah and Mr. Thomas, I look forward to speaking with your students. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. I'm glad the wind's allowed for you to be able to be with us and hear your voice. And I also want to mention that Eddie is part Apache, and so he is particularly interested in reaching out to Native American students. And I think that your students, Tom and Sarah, are in for a real treat. So thank you for joining our team, Eddie. We'll be hearing from you more. Annette, I'd like to get back to, well, we can get back to that question, but before we run out of time, and I'm not sure what time we're pointing at, but we've developed a book of almost 30 pages, and Ashley Teren was the she was the director of the book, and she did a terrific job. But it's all about the things we were talking about today, and there's segments in there from each of the teachers. There's segments from David and I. There's NASA upcoming missions, and that, just so we don't let, I just wondered if you could tell the viewers how they are going to be able to access this.
Yeah, so this will all be posted on the project webpage. So if you go to nativeskywatchers.com, and then you'll be able to go from there to the project page for the Navajo Dine project, and you'll see a lot of the resources. I have a screenshot here I can share with you real quick, and you'll be able to download the booklet. And it is action-packed with not just the beautiful cover, but you can see more details than we had time to share today. And all of our team contributed elements. It's really a fantastic booklet. So thank you, Ashley, for putting that together. You'll be able to see the recording of this live event here as well. In just a few days, a week at the most, it'll be posted. Also worksheets and a worksheet and activity. So we kind of put all the resources right there on the project webpage.
Great, thank you. And David, I don't know if David's still on or not. I'm not seeing his name, so he might have gotten thrown off too. There's some wonderful questions here, and we're not going to get around to all of them. I see my screen says 99 plus questions, so I have no idea how many after 99 there are. But they're really good questions, and I don't know if there's some way, Annette, we could have our emails on here, or we could. I think that I think on your website you probably have our emails somewhere. If not, we could work with you and put them on. And so if somebody had a question, they could know where to go to get a response.
Absolutely. Everyone who feels comfortable posting their email, we can put it on there, because this is all about, building that community and building that culture, the two-eyed seeing into especially our classrooms and in our communities. It's a revitalization of our Indigenous knowledge, right? So yeah, we can definitely put all those resources on there, the emails as well.
Good. I think that would really be helpful. I will say one thing about that question about when you can start and stop. One way to do it would be to, knowing the Navajo Nation is composed of 3 states, which are Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah, where they all come together. That's mountain time, and so you could think about what the weather was like out there, and it's probably going to be pretty obvious when spring is coming. But everybody, all these stories we're telling, this isn't the only version of them. They have many versions, and it depends on your clan, your family, which way you're talked, even how to say thank you. Yeah, there's different ways to spell it. So don't get hung up on just one. The other way you could think about doing it is in your own community. If thunder hasn't come yet, the first thunder of spring, then it might be possible. But we were particularly concerned with people working in planetariums and showing, like we have a planetarium show on Navajo skies available, and we've always been concerned that the planetariums don't show it out of season. Usually we're careful and don't talk as much about the stories as we have today in this presentation, because you don't know where these videos go. They tend to have a life of their own. So just be aware of that Navajo protocol says they are not told during the winter months, and the winter months are normally, they're only told in the winter months, and the winter months are normally it's October, November, December, January, and part of February.
Okay, with that, it might be a good time to wrap it up. What do you think? We did have one final slide. Maybe we can just put that on here real quick. That was just to say thank you. And then the last thing was, remember that we have one event each month. And so the next event will be in late February, and that'll be focusing on our the African American and African Indigenous astronomy. That will be led by Jarita Holbrook and team.
Annette, if I could say for a second, this is Eddie Gonzalez from NASA. For any students or teachers or anybody that's on still listening in, I get hundreds of emails daily. But if you have a question, or if you'd just like to send a hello, you'd like me to send a hello back, you can reach me on Instagram at Eddie from NASA, and I will return any messages or anything of that nature. And I just wish everyone a safe and happy weekend.
Thank you, Eddie. And I'd like to thank Annette. Not only is she a wonderful hostess for these programs, she planted the seed for them, and she's helped us every step of the way. And she's been so generous and so kind, sharing her knowledge and her knowledge of graphic arts, and being with us in this journey. And so I just want to just shout out a great thank you, how much we appreciate your work, Annette.
Oh, Pilamia Miigwech, it's such an honor to work with you and your team, and I think we've done a great job here, and we've only also just begun. I'm really proud of the collaboration where it's Indigenous led and right into the classrooms with the culture teachers and educators, really taking a lead part in the students, creating the content. I really feel proud of this work, and it's an honor to work with you, Nancy. So let's think of this as just the beginning of something new that we're building, the continued work on revitalization and Indigenous knowledge systems.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, think of it as it's throwing a rock into a lake and seeing the ripples go out. So all of you participants, thank you for being part of this.
Oh, and don't forget to add, Nancy, that you have your fantastic Indigenous Education Institute and just fantastic speaker series. You want to mention that real quickly and then we can sign off?
Yeah, we have a great speaker series, and I think some of the people on it have been part of it. We have about once every month or every other month, we're featuring one of the great Indigenous minds and spirits of our time. We started with Leroy Little Bear, and we're on our 6th speaker now, which is going to be Henrietta Mann. She's a Cheyenne woman. She's a professor and educator and activist. Her great grandmother survived the Sand Creek Massacre in Colorado, and from that very traditional beginning, she has been a college president. She's been advisor to college presidents. She's a beautiful speaker. She will be speaking on February 25th at noon, and anybody who is on this today will get an invitation for that. It's free, it's open to everybody. And if you go to our website, there is our page that Annette is showing right now. If you go to our website, it's www.indigenousedu.org. You'll find out about our upcoming events. We believe in the power of Indigenous knowledge and how useful it can be today. And we work with a lot of different communities. And so we invite you to join us. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.